because there's actually a record that shows that the top, say, 10 passwords around the world were things like 0 to 9 or password 123. There's a very big distinction between somebody being hacked or a system being hacked and somebody just having low consciousness or awareness.
Greetings, seekers of ancient wisdom. But today, we're not talking about ancient wisdom. We're talking about very present day wisdom that you need. And I'm joined by an ethical hacker, Ben Levin, who specializes in helping you stay hack free and be aware of how you can get hacked and how technology thieves are waiting to pounce on you. So, Ben, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks, Deepak John, for having me. It's great.
Wonderful. So you can just call me Deepak or Indigo Jedi. That's all good. But I'm like fascinated by this role that you've got, and it is so relevant for people today because internet crime, um, internet scams, technology scams, they are just becoming so rife. So I want to start off with a story of something that happened to me recently and how easily I got hacked. So anyway, I've got a 1 year old. He's 18 months now, but at the time he was 1 year old, and I was looking after him, and he was causing his usual chaos. So then I get a message on my phone, a WhatsApp message from an old friend of mine. I haven't chatted to him in years, but I used to work with him in the solar business, a guy called Svelin. So he sends me a message, "Hi, Deepak, how you doing?" So I respond, "Hey, Svelin, long time. I haven't chatted to you. What's happening on your end?" So he sends me a couple more small talk. And then he says, "Hey, Deepak, I'm entered a competition. Please, can you vote for me?" I'm like, "Okay, no worries, Svelin, I'll vote for you." So sends me, he says, "Oh, okay, there's a SMS that's been sent to your phone. Please just send me a screenshot of that SMS." So because I'm dealing with the little baby and I'm like, not really focused. So anyway, I take a screenshot of this SMS. It's like this weird Cody thing, and I send it to him. Then he asks for money. And I'm like, okay, this is a bit weird. Svelin doesn't really ask for money. He's not that type of guy. So I tell him, like, listen, I don't have money, and it goes away. Anyway, what happened was this guy used that screenshot that I sent him, which was some code to break into my Telegram account. So immediately I couldn't get into my Telegram. And what he then proceeded to do was to get all my contacts from Telegram. And then he contacted all of them pretending to be me, obviously trying to siphon money off them or something, or try to get them to fall for this trap. I mean, that's just such a simple thing. And it was such havoc. Like all my contacts on my phone were reached out to by this scam artist. And, I had to like put out fires and do all this chaos management. But yeah, I mean, it's so rife, Ben. Like, how do we be? Yeah, I mean, you're the ethical hacker. How do we protect ourselves in this kind of environment?
So, Deepak, before we get onto how to protect it, let's talk a little bit about the Telegram function and what actually happened there. Just because in the theory approach, what these guys will do, they've got essentially a boilerplate template, if you will, where there's only so many actions that one can kind of perform and use in order to get these things going. And when you're doing these actions on a broad spectrum, there's 8 billion odd people on planet Earth. So, just because one guy doesn't fall for the boilerplate template, the next guy would. In this case, you with your Telegram story. And so, yeah, just to talk about what was actually potentially happening there, disclosure, I wasn't around, so it's not 100%, but in theory, what was likely happening is that, he got your information, your username or email, how to log into Telegram. And now he knew that your device or your friend, was in contact with you. So he went and he would go and do a forgot password because he was trying to log into the Telegram account, your Telegram account. And naturally, Telegram would send a one-time PIN, here on after OTP, that would come to your device. Naturally phoned you up, said, I've got this screenshot or this thing that needs to happen. Vote for me in order to get said one-time PIN, which is the verification mechanism in order to reset the password. You, of course, were distracted. You didn't, you weren't all straight there because you had your newborn child. And so then, yeah, you just handed it over, which was the OTP, the protection mechanism in place from Telegram to protect your account. He now had that. They said, enter the OTP, the one-time PIN. And just like that, they now said, well, what's your new password? He now entered it in and he had control. He now had your login and your password in order to authenticate. And now he could be you on the platform. Proceeded to do, as you mentioned, putting out the fires and asking people for money. So there's a very big distinction between somebody being hacked or a system being hacked and somebody just having low, for lack of a better word, consciousness or awareness as to what's actually transpiring, and low information or knowledge around how the technical world operates. And so, unfortunately, we can't all get to this because the systems are complex, but having the basic information, which is where I'm trying to get to with the ethical hacking and the social awareness that I do, is just to kind of, show people, this is how it would generally work, this is what to look out for, and this is how to go about, protecting yourself, falling less or having a less opportunity to fall victim to cybercrime, scams, and these kinds of account takeovers. So from the ethical hacking perspective, when we are going and checking things, generally the role would be in the corporate environment. So that's where the users are interacting with the banking apps, with your chat apps, Telegram, WhatsApp, Signal, etc., Facebook. Yeah, the list goes on. And so we would go and generally check these systems to make sure that from the business perspective, yes, the clients as well, the users as well, but from the business perspective, there's the right security mechanisms in place to ensure that the business itself is protected and naturally transferring towards the clients, that the client's data is protected. The rationale behind it is that now with POPI, GDPR, all the compliance and risk frameworks, there's heavy fines for when your data gets disclosed. The fine is one mechanism. Hey, you were naughty. You shouldn't have been hacked or breached and disclosed this data. But that doesn't stop the data from now still being out in the wild. It still exists on what they call dark web databases. So dark web, it's just two layers. You get the normal internet, what everyone else would use. So your Telegrams, your Facebooks, your Google searches, your YouTube, etc. That would be normal internet. But there is a subset and underneath a private internet, if you will, that if you know how to access via various mechanisms, Tor, other kinds of, more alternative technologies, you can actually get access to a lot broader internet activity. So unfortunately on this kind of internet here, although it's not the sole type, but that's where you would find your typical guns, your drugs, your human trafficking, potentially various sexual activities that could go on. And unfortunately, humans do delve in this kind of activity. Another aspect of it would be, impersonation. That's quite a big one, because if you can impersonate a company worth a few hundred million or billions, you could essentially leverage that to get the clients to now interact with you, and well, you profit. Fundamentally from all of this, as you mentioned, from the Telegram scam that happened to you, what was the fundamental ultimate goal was to, well, gain profit. So the takeaway is that cybercrime is merely just another business for the cyber criminals. They focus on profit, they focus on return on investment, they focus on how to get it, and unfortunately, we are all the victim. So yeah, that's what we try and prevent.
So in my case was a very bad example, but I just wanted to start off there. And obviously, now that it's happened to me, I am very cognizant, and I would never give my information about anything to anyone ever. Um, but like you said, that's like a very basic one, because I actually gave them my keys. I gave the criminal my keys, and he now could access my Telegram. But the more sophisticated stuff is what you specialize in, really. And how can us as a consumer, because I guess that's most people watching the show, we're just general public going about our business. We're not maybe tech savvy. We have our jobs, but we do have tech. We've got the phones, we've got the Facebook, we've got the bank apps. What are we susceptible to, and how can we just become more street smart, I guess, against these cyber criminals?
So yeah, so the apps and all those things do go and take the relevant precautions and mechanisms. So you will see on your banking apps, there's always those little pop-ups. Most of the time you probably click past it because, with the modern age, there's an information overload. The terms and conditions are pages and pages and pages long. And all you really wanted to do was watch that video, play that game, make a payment to a friend, support a charity or an initiative, buy that thing off Amazon, where, and you just like, I just want it to be done. It's just too much. And so, yeah, in the short livelihoods that we have, we just skim past all of this kind of stuff. And so overlook some of the security features and mechanisms that are there. But generally, in regard to like Facebook or the banking apps, things like that, they would actually post on the apps, never divulge your one-time PIN or never give away. But sometimes there's a disconnect between the technical sides, which I might even do during this podcast at some point, because my technical know-how and knowledge is just higher than the general average layman. And so even from that, when I would go and say randomly, like, don't divulge your OTP, and the layman might sit there and be like, well, what is that? And, that never occurred to me because I work with it every day. And that's just a very bad, very basic example. But yeah, that's where the first problem is connecting with your clientele. And that doesn't even take into account language barriers. When somebody can only speak Zulu, oof, that then becomes a problem, and various others, French and otherwise too. But yeah, so language barriers becomes an issue. Connecting with the actual clients, they will always say this is the security mechanism that you have to put in place. So MFA, just did it again, multi-factor authentication. But what is that? What does it mean? And so generally that would be a second factor, a second mechanism that once you've entered in your username and your password, and assuming it was correct and the system validated you, they would now send a notification or a prompt. The OTP from Telegram, for instance, or on Microsoft side, they would send you a pop-up to log into your email or sometimes Gmail, even if you've enabled it. And that would then say, okay, you've authenticated, but we need this second factor in order for you to log in, which would be the MFA, hence multi-factor. And so then you would put in the number, either come and say, was it you, yes or no? What is the number on the screen? And they give you the 3 or 4 options, and you have to put in the right number. And, then the company is basically saying, okay, cool, this user, they've entered the username and password. We've sent them another prompt to a different device even, or a different mechanism, so to say. So you get like your Microsoft Authenticator, you get Authy, you get 1Password, Proton Pass. There's quite a few of them on the market. And so they would now go and assume that if you've entered in your username and your password, and now we have sent a notification on what would be called a out of channel band, i.e., that application or your SMS or your email, and you've now got access to that other out of band, that assumed you could log in to that other out of band. That assumed that you were authenticated and you were supposed to access that other out of channel band, get that key, put it into this band, and now you are approved. But if you are reusing passwords, for example, and they are short and not necessarily, or very easy to guess, let's put it that way, then you're not really hacking your Facebook account or hacking your Telegram. You're merely just taking a guess because, well, the password was short, and these password lists exist on the internet. There's billions of records of them where they will say various things like the numbers password 1 or password 1234, or just numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 8 and 9, and various things like this. And you would find that through these word lists and these dumps, there have been various ones, and one of the very popular ones that I would technically use in my day-to-day activities actually came from Ashley Madison. So your adult activity websites where they actually had a database dump, a breach, where an attacker actually got into their database, dumped the database, and now they had all the usernames and passwords for all the clients that were on, well, Ashley Madison. And from this, the reason why it is there is because there's actually a record that shows that the top, say, 10 passwords around the world were things like 0 to 9 or password 123, or very like trivial and very simple things to guess. Sometimes maybe even something like Facebook at 2025. Because people think, there's an at sign, there's a special character, and they've used the app name Facebook. And, how hard would it be to just take a guess and, randomly do it? So people go and guess these kinds of things, and most times they get it wrong. Sometimes they get it right. And from the company's perspective, they would be testing for things which would be called brute force login. So that's where I would come in. I would test these login things for a brute force login, and I would go and take these random password lists, and I would go and say, okay, well, I've got this username that I know is valid. I want to test if the password exists. So I will put random passwords there, ABC 567, whatever, this whole list that's there, and it would do all these iterations going down this list, attempting to log in. And maybe on password 2400, if there weren't any security mechanisms on the web application on Facebook or otherwise, at that attempt of 2500, it now says, name Ben, password at 2025 exclamation mark is successful, and now it's logged in. And so it wasn't really a hack, it was just an iteration of username password combinations, and I happened to use a bad one. So recommendation from my side is use the longest password that the application supports. So some applications only support, say, 8 characters. Some applications support 16. Some applications that you set infinite, up to 200 characters. And my general approach is I don't like the complexity, although it's good. I don't like the complexity. Complexity being random things. A, capital Z, 6, 8, exclamation mark, hash bracket, 2, 5, B. It's very complicated to remember that. So you generally write it down. Now you've written it down, well, an attacker can see that. So it's kind of defeated the purpose. So for me, I prefer length, and I try and fill out as much as I can to the length of the application. So I would use a well-formed sentence if the application allows. And I'd say maybe say 8 characters. I'd say Ben's boy blue. 3 words. It means something to me. In this case, it's just random because I can't talk about my passwords on the podcast. But, assuming it meant something to me, it's easy to remember for me. I can save it in a password manager. And the fact that it is 3 distinct words means that there's trillions, more than trillions, of possible combinations that need to be brute forced if somebody was going to try it. Because just those 3 words, you can have Ben's boy blue Ben, so on and so on. You can mix that around. And then also just characters, uppercase and lowercase. So now all of a sudden from password 1, you've made yourself just by using what they call phrase, so a sentence, that's not very complex. Ben, boy, blue, very easy to remember, all normal letters. There's some uppercase because it's a well-structured sentence, and there's a full stop at the end. It's got a special character too. That's cool. So it makes sense to kind of do length, because the longer something is, the harder it is to brute force. And where the compromise would come in there is then getting in touch with the person, in your case, the Telegram, and then asking, they say, I've forgotten the password. Can you just tell me what the OTP is? They disguise that as a competition he's entered, so he asks you to send a prompt. They might go and, get really nefarious, and they'd say, hey, Deepak, your mom's been in a car accident. We've got her in emergency hospital. Naturally, from that case in point, all your rationale goes out the window. You're panicked. You're like, but my mom, and so now you start to talk information. This becomes even worse when they initially provide, it's what they call pretexting. And they'll say, hey, am I speaking to Deepak John or Indigo Purple? And, at the end, you live at 123 Unicorn Lane. And, I just need you to confirm your ID. And now, straight away, just from the information, assuming it was correct, it's all hypothetical in this context, but assuming it was correct, we've already started a trust relationship. Because I had some basic information, or your mobile number. We had some basic information that was validated. So you're like, where did he possibly get that from? He must be okay. So when I say confirm your ID, you would give it to me. Then I'd say, well, confirm your medical aid number or whatever. And only when there's something really dodgy, like, hey, Deepak, can you just send me $1 million? You're going to be like, why is he asking for that? That's kind of weird. But by that point, it's already too late. You've already verified information. And as a cyber criminal, I can revisit that information because I know it's valid. Even if your phone number changes, even if your email changes, you don't go around changing your address every week. I can send you an email through the postal system. I can send you a courier box, through DHL. So it'll cost me $100, but maybe I get you to do something, funny, or maybe I can convince you to take action with that delivery in some way that, now we can continue these kind of attacks on civilians. And yeah, so it becomes this whole iterative process, this whole ongoing process where, we are harboring information. So you'll see it from like a POPI perspective, the prevention of personal information being identified and shared and all of that kind of stuff. But again, when there's a database dump or a database breach or somebody got hacked, even though there's fines, that information is still out in the wild. And that information can be reused. Your ID number doesn't change. Your name generally doesn't change. What you were born with on your birth certificate, it generally stays the same for the duration of your life. There's very few instances where people will actually go and change their name. Marriage is one of them, but you still retain your maiden names, technically. So that kind of stuff stays fixed, static. And so once somebody has it, it's there essentially for life. And so it can be reused over and over and over.
And I guess they can. And I guess the thing is, you've mentioned they get the information, and the static information. I guess it's like how creative they are with their ideas that they're going to come up with. I mean, I never imagined someone sending me a courier box to try scam me or try make me do some action. Like you're really making me start to think like a criminal. But they've got this information of yours, and because they know it's correct, they can come up with some scheme, right? And yeah, it's just for us to be always cognizant, always aware. But these are really good tips that you're giving us. I mean, what are the common things that people do besides money? I mean, money is the obvious thing. They'll ask for money. But besides that, what are the other type of cyber crimes that are common?
So it's very broad scale. I mean, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. Money is always the answer. Money does extend to cryptocurrency nowadays. So, that whole network, and it makes an easy getaway. Believe it or not, your identity is very valuable. So, from another criminal perspective, it's where my mindset is at as the ethical hacker. I've trained myself to think in these ways, but, for disclosure, being ethical, we disclose to protect. So yeah, what you can do is your identity. Maybe you have got, for case in point, a United States citizenship. And now I'm stuck in South Africa or various other countries. It doesn't really matter. And so if I was able to get you to potentially confirm certain actions, like maybe completely hypothetical, the USA Embassy says that we need a voice imprint. So now I use a WhatsApp communication, or I phone you, and with the rise of AI and what they're calling deep fakes now, where you can take photos of people, take voices of people, and the AI will start to make characters. You would have seen it in some of the things where these like training videos, and the people jump up and there's text prompt, and they've spoken into a microphone, they've trained the AI with some wording to sound like me. And so then on my text prompt, even though I have said the dog is red, example, and I'm sitting here, I can then change the thing to be the fox jumped over the moon. And the AI would read the fox jumped over the moon in my tone, in my presence, with my hand gestures and facial expressions, etc. Would it be perfect? Not quite there yet, but very, very, very close. So there's lots of things. And so from that voice print, from that ID, from that photo, from, getting back to the whole USA citizenship, I'm wanting to get out of South Africa. Why? Because there's an opportunity that I want in America. I can't get there because maybe, for random example, I've got a criminal record, or I don't have the money, or I can't afford a spousal visa or a skills visa, or there's various reasons. Or maybe I just don't want to use my real ID because I'm doing criminal activity. So I will rather frame you. And I will rather use your information. Then when they come knocking and looking, they don't ring my doorbell, they ring yours. You have no idea what's happened because you just received a phone call. But, so that's where this can go. So, yes, it's money, it's identity, it's even vehicles. So there's quite a big problem in South Africa and even around the world where they're doing what's called number plate cloning. So, people will have heard this kind of thing. And I mean, the number plate cloning, people are like, so what? But now, if you're going to go, say, rob a bank, rob an armored vehicle, go and do some sort of crime somewhere, whatever the case may be, and you've literally cloned another vehicle by clone, we'll just dive into that for a second. So for case in point, you've got a VW Polo, and let's say that the VIN number is 123 and the license plate is ABC. So you've gone, Deepak's gone, and you've just parked in the parking lot at your favorite shop, Woolworths or Checkers or whatever it is. I'm only picking on you for the example. And, I walk up to the car and I see, oh, there's a VW Polo. That's the exact one that I drive, exactly 1.4 TFSI, panoramic roof, whatever the case may be. And I take a picture of your VIN number. It's now exposed. I take a picture of your license plate. It's publicly viewable. I go back to my workshop. I don't even touch your vehicle. I go back to my workshop and I recreate your license plate. I recreate your VIN number. I change the VIN number on my ECU and on my vehicle. Now my car looks like it's registered to you, Deepak. So now when I go around, commit my crimes, everything's tying back to you because the cars are the same. They're identical. They're cloned. So there is that aspect as well from a cybercrime and from a crime perspective, where how do you get away? And the getaway, that's what cyber criminals will do. But what one wants to do from society is you want to prevent even starting, let alone them getting away. And so, yeah, your awareness needs to be raised around, first of all, not giving them the access. So in the case of the OTP that you receive from Telegram, not doing that, be willing to communicate, but as soon as there's any funny information, you've got to verify. Always verify is the main takeaway. And where verification would come through is I could say, hey, Deepak, you're speaking to, let's say, John from SARS. It's tax time now, and we've got a tax return for you. And, we really want to give you 50,000 Rand refund. But first, I need to confirm your ID, your address, your medical. We can go on and on and on. Straight away, you'll smile. You'll be like, ding, ding, ding. Money's coming my way. This is great. SARS is trusted. Of course, I don't work for SARS. And you'll start to disclose your entire life's existence. You'll never see that refund. You'll never see that money because that was never the point. But now you need to sit back and say, why would SARS phone me? So yeah, Deepak, you got a call from SARS. You disclosed your information. Like you were expecting this nice thing. You thought that SARS was validated and secure. And now where you verify yourself is you would say, well, why would SARS phone me? They would correspond via email or via SMS because they want everything in writing. They generally would not call you back unless you've requested a callback service, right? And then even from that requested callback service, there's generally those ID numbers, not your personal one, but call ID numbers, where they say, please quote the ID to the person that's calling. Why is this happening? So that you know that you're speaking to the person. Why? Because you initiated that callback response, right? If you didn't do that, why is SARS phoning you? They won't do that. Right? So it's that. Another aspect would be from like a summons sometimes, So a colleague of mine previously, she was contacted. Again, I assume that this came as a result of the TransUnion breach, TransUnion being the credit regulators, So some of the information was out there in the wild. No offense to them. They tried their best. And for educational purposes only. Yeah. And so some of the information was there. It could be accessed potentially or on other sources. And they phoned her up. They said, hey, we're going to call her Jane for this case. We've got a parcel with your ID number. It is 1234 is your ID number. And it's got methamphetamines in it. We've got a warrant for your arrest. Tell me your email address. I'm sending the summons for your arrest to your email. First of all, police would never give you the chance to run away by sending you a summons via email. It has to be registered and delivered by hand, right? So they identify you, they know who you are. Most people in South Africa don't know this. She didn't know this. So she gave them the email address. The summons came in, of course, completely fake, just like the SARS call. And when it was there, now panic ensued. So all her rationale left her mindset, and they started to proceed. And they said, okay, well, you've received the summons now. We've got your email. Can you confirm your address? Can you confirm your this? Can you confirm your that? And she was like, but I didn't do this. It's fraud. It must be fraud. And naturally, from the attacker side, I said, well, go speak to this specific police officer. Let's call him Police Officer Deepak. You. And now, of course, you're in my syndicate together because we're working together for profit. And so my colleague would phone you because I told her to. And as soon as, because you now know what's going on, you would tell her more information of, oh, this is fraud. Well, we can make it go away. All you have to do is send me an EFT for 500,000 or 500 Rand or 50,000, whatever. Insert sum of money that you want. And there's a chance she'll either send it or she won't. If your value is small, let's say you said 10 grand. Maybe just because of the stress and the burden, they'll pay it. You've just obtained 10,000 Rand for nothing. Cyber criminally, it's still an offense, but you know how to get away with it. And so, yeah, so now she's lost her money. You've gained the money. You profited it. That was what the goal of the cybercrime was about. And how did this all transpire? We pretexted her. We told her impersonation that we're calling from SARS. We worked together. We got her to be scared because now we said, there's this MDMA, there's these drugs. She didn't know what was happening. She naturally caught on. She said there's fraud. She tried to take action. We told her which police officer to speak to. She didn't stop to verify and say, but why specifically that police officer? Why can't I go to any police station? So it was that kind of verification there. And when they said, we've got this parcel with your ID number, she's like, but I didn't send a parcel. Why did she even entertain that? Because she knows she didn't send a parcel. Yet she entertained the callers and she provided additional information and she listened to their instruction. This story, as it goes, actually went on, and eventually they told her, you must pay 200,000 Rand in order to make this go away. It was only at that point that she called me. She said, no, I don't know what's happening. This is the case. Unfortunately, there's basically nothing she can do. So I told her to just block the callers, do not answer, do not disclose anymore. It's unfortunate that she already gave away the information that she's given away because, as I said, it's for life. The ID number there is for life. The name's for life. So at some point in future, she might be contacted again. Hopefully she has the awareness. She stops it straight away. It just is unfortunately the way it works. And around the world, from the nature of how technology goes, it's very difficult to actually go and track down this cybercrime kind of thing. Why? Just from a little bit of a theory perspective, the way the internet works is got IP addresses, and those IP addresses are linked to what's called a domain. So to put that into the layman's context, you will have facebook.com, just random example, and facebook.com will be converted via what's called a DNS, a domain name solution, and that will go and convert Facebook to an IP that says, say, for example, we'll use Google's 1.1.1.1. And the 1.1.1.1 would transpire to what would essentially be your earth number of your house. But to run around and know the earth number of your property can kind of get distracting and kind of hard, and to look it up, it's not an easy system. So in order to know where you live, we would say, well, come visit me at facebook.com. Very memorable, very easy. So when you type in facebook.com, the various systems and solutions go and convert it back to the number. And the number is what actually delivers, well, the page at Facebook or YouTube or Google. So based on that kind of stuff, there's, fake domains that come up. And so I don't want you to go and interact with the real facebook.com because I know that the real facebook.com has got security in place. So I will go and register my own domain, a fake domain, but I need it to look like the other one. So case in point, where it says Facebook, instead of it saying E for face, I'll make it the number 3, FAC3, BOOK. Or maybe something like FACEB0OK. Something that to the brain, it's just got a slight variance. Not easy to pick up, but very applicable. And when you visit my fake Facebook account, I've set that up that it shows you the real login, it shows you the real information. When you interact with that, I receive your username and your password. Now I can log into your real Facebook account. From there, we can then do the standard mechanisms. Try and extort money from your friends, try and get cash, try and make advertisements, various things. And it's just by a sheer numbers game. If I have one victim, there's a 50-50 chance. If I have 100,000 victims, still same 50-50 chance, but the success rate is a lot higher. 50% of the 50%ers might say yes. And so the profit and the chance of success increases exponentially. So yeah, this goes on forever. It's long. It's long and it's broad and it's there. So let's talk a little bit about awareness and how you can actually protect.
So I just have some questions before you go on to the awareness side, right? Because I was just thinking about how it's evolved over time. I remember in the 90s, we got our first computer, and back then the issue was viruses. Like a virus would get into the computer and maybe slow your computer down, or I don't really know what else it does, but that's the fear that it gave to us. It'll like make your computer sick and make it stop or crash or stuff like that. But the whole crime has now evolved quite a lot to impersonation, identity theft, um, tricking people, manipulating people to try and get them scared or worried and somehow part with their money. It's like evolved tremendously, right? I've just, you know, just reflecting on like what's happened in the last 30 years of computers.
So over the last 30 years, you're right. It used to be very basic. So a case in point, like there was sometimes piracy is not piracy, but there was something called like torrenting. uTorrenting was one of the programs that was there. And what generally happened on that is, you would share, let's play on the legal game. I painted a picture of a rose. I took a photo of it. I stored the image on my computer and I was like, hey, I want everybody to have a copy of my rose that I've painted. So I would go and I'd put this onto the torrent sites. It would go and be stored and transported and shared everywhere across the world. And anybody that wanted to download it could. How that download occurred was again with the IP address that kind of happened. And in this program, it would broadcast that IP address to the entire world. So anybody that used that system could essentially see this IP address. Did they actively target you? No, it was just a random, by chance, somebody's going to interact with me and allow me to do this. So when you get that information, much like your ID number or your address, it's something that's there. And now I can go and say, well, would you like to get car insurance? I need information from you. ID, address, what car you have, yada, yada. Legitimate purpose, sure. But outside of that, I can then use that information to do other nefarious acts. Similar principle with the torrent, you disclosed your address, your location. Now that I know that, that IP address doesn't always change. Sometimes it does. That's what you call a dynamic IP. Sometimes it stays fixed, static. So in the cases of when I was talking about Facebook, for example, they've got several, but static IPs. And those static IPs never change. But so you could still access Facebook by going directly to the IP, but you generally would use the domain, facebook.com. And so with this information that's out there, you can go and leverage and do other things, that are not necessarily available. So back in the day on the 30 years back, as it was, when they had your public IP, they would go and they would scan your computer because naturally, if you think about a house door scenario, that is your IP address and your computer. So your computer, if it's on the internet, has got a public IP, and that public IP will be matched to what are called ports. The analogy, your home and your doors. And so you would have certain doors open. It's not like you didn't have a wall that anybody could just walk up to, and you didn't leave your front door just unlocked. So in that case, you just left your ports open that anybody could like, hey, and be on your PC. You would have certain ports open with certain things where certain kinds of authentication needed to happen. And so once they had that public IP, they could essentially scan your house and be like, oh, okay, front door is locked, back door is locked, uh, garage door is open. And if it was open, they could start looking around the garage. They could start looking around the port. and see what was available there. They could potentially upload content without you even knowing through that port, through that door, to onto your PC. Now you get those viruses that are there. And yeah, other ways. You could also visit websites and you could download those viruses. Then you go and you click it. So a big one there in the piracy game, they put these viruses into your games. Maybe you wanted to play your favorite Sims game or download your favorite movie or, something like that. And they put these viruses into that. So now you willfully went along and you watched your movie. That was the execution phase. So from a virus perspective, for the most part, there are exceptions, of course, like everything. But for the most part, they require user interaction. Same as the scammers, they require your interaction, you to answer the phone and you to disclose your information. So the virus requires your interaction. When you do it, they actually, contrary, are doing the same sort of activities that they do today. They could turn on your webcam and take photos of you. They would then try and use those photos. Maybe, I don't know, you're running around slightly naked. Take those photos, try and sell them onto your adult content websites. Take photos of you for impersonation. Take photos to go and say, hey, look, this is a cool thing. Maybe impersonate you as well in like dating apps or in IRC, which was a chat thing back in the day, or just random stuff. So although it has gotten a lot more sophisticated and a lot more broad with AI and with the security mechanisms that are here and impersonation, these sorts of things actually existed all the way back then. And one of the other things as well, okay, we're a bit more resilient nowadays than what we were back in the day, was like denial of service, right? So where denial of service, what they call a DOS attack, is that if clients can't use it, the company stops receiving money. So they would go and they would phone up a company or send an email, and let's just say Deepak is the company, and I'd go and say, hey Deepak, if you don't pay me 100 million rand, I'm going to DOS your website. And now, of course, you've got, I don't know, whatever you're selling, and this is worthwhile to you, and you're like, no, I'm not interested. So I get my botnet, as they call it, and we go and we DOS your website. We send so much traffic that your system cannot handle it, and it basically doesn't allow any more connections. Now, no more users can connect to your website, which means no sales, no revenue, no business. The big part there is not the sales and the revenue, it's your reputation. You're unavailable because reputation matters. Money matters too, and sales matter too, but reputation matters. And so from that kind of thing now, as these things go down, your reputation would fail, and now, well, your business is hurt. So you have to now spend a lot more money. Eventually, there are ways to stop the DOS attacks and things like that. You drop what they call the packets and things, and you can recover, but there's a lot of damage that is done in that process. So yeah, like it's all like I said, and it was happening back in the day. And as you say, the viruses, they would go and brick your Windows PC because they were more targeting rather than the civilians. They were targeting the companies because it's that again, right? If you take the company offline, now nefarious thinking, right? So again, we'll pick on Deepak as a stock price, a share on the JSE, if you will. And now Deepak is trading at, say, 300 Rand a share. And they're doing exceptionally well. Your revenue's good. It's climbing 320, 340, 350, on and on. And now Deepak's got a loophole, this port that's open, and I can infect him. And we go and we make all your PCs shut down. Now, from a reputation perspective, client data is not safe. Your reputation's just been tarnished. Your systems are broken, so you can't do sales. You can't do revenue. Again, your stock price. From an attacker perspective, since I'm the one that would be technically attacking you in the scenario, I can go and say, well, I know that my attack is going to harm Deepak's company. I know that my attack is going to make Deepak's company's share price go from 350 to 100 Rand. So I can essentially go and take a put or a call option, those bets that the share price is going to change, and I can go and say, well, I want to put in a 10,000 Rand or 100,000 Rand put or call option, depending what kind of action I'm wanting to achieve, on Deepak's company, that in the next 6 months or 3 months, the share price is going to plummet or skyrocket, depending which way we want to go with this thing. And then I go and I launch my attack against you. So in the case here, we want you to be harmed. We want your share price to drop so that I can profit and win from my option that I've got on the well, betting portals really. And well, I launch this attack against you. And well, lo and behold, that's exactly what happens. Your reputation is tarnished and your share price completely just drops. 350 down to 100. And well, those are the conditions I had on my bet, on my option. And so now I profit. I didn't care about your data. I didn't care about your company. You were just a means to achieve my bet. I can then go and be like, okay, well, now I'll stop that denial of service. And I put in another option. And I say, well, I know that Deepak is amazing and he's going to recover. What some would call too big to fail. And so now I know that your stock price is going to go up, even though it's hard and it's bad, and maybe you had to fire 5 people. Doesn't matter. I sit back and I wait with my next option, and I say that, well, the stock price is going to recover back to 350. I don't touch you. I leave you alone. And well, over 6 months to a year, lo and behold, your stock price goes back up to 350 because you're an amazing company. Well, the condition for my option was just met. So I can technically play you from the syndicate's perspective to generate cash this way. Other people in the cryptocurrency scheme, they would say that that's kind of what happens, right? You get your big whales that dump money in. So your guys that have 100 billion, unfortunately, in those contexts, it has to be billions and trillions of revenue because you need that kind of sizable deposit, so you will, deposit and withdrawal, in order to affect the cryptocurrency blockchains. It's unfortunately not small money. So you get your big whales. Some people will say Trump coin did it, where he deposited in 100 million US dollars, made the price go up. Now it went up, so people started to buy. Then he pulled the money out. Now he's profited because now obviously the share price drops. But when it went up, he obviously gained more than when it was down. Now he wins. No thing. It's the nature of how it works. It's the economies. It's just what it is. Are there people that do it? Absolutely. Is Trump one of them? Probably not. You know, people love to pick on people that do things. Yeah, I can't say, but it is what it is. And yeah, so it's just all of these kinds of things that it's not always a direct attack on a company or on an individual. Sometimes it's just a means to an end. Yeah, so onto the awareness kind of things that what one can do, because we can talk about cybercrime for a very long time.
No, but I think awareness is very important, especially for just the general layman, and just to be aware of the types of crimes. I think we've discussed some of them, but yeah, I think if you can give us like practical tools that we can do to prevent it and just make it harder. I think you did mention some of them, like verification, never give information, just get your light bulb on whenever anyone is asking you for something. But yeah, I think this will be a great summary.
Sure. So yeah, so on the awareness side, as I said, verify. You know, is the information that this guy's asking me for actually required? Was I actually expecting that kind of call or that kind of correspondence? When an OTP comes in, did I actually reset my account? You know, surely you would have known if it says password reset OTP and you're like, hey, did I actually click forgot password on my Facebook account? You know, those kinds of awareness of like, did you actually do it? And if you didn't, you know, they generally would say, like on the OTP for password reset, it says, if you didn't make this action, don't take action. There's nothing you need to do. Change your password because somebody's trying to access your account. So just from a safety perspective, go change your password. Don't make it the same one you had before because that defeats the purpose. Don't make it shorter. You know, think length, think stronger, better, and more memorable. Because why do you go and reuse passwords? Well, because you can't remember them. It's difficult. Where this is solved is essentially, you know, using a password manager. As I mentioned before, there's Proton Pass, 1Password, Microsoft Authenticator, Authy are your MFA portals or apps that you can use. Yeah, various ones of them. You can Google, those we can put a few references in. And in those, you know, you can then save all your passwords, set them to be nice and strong, and never think of them again. Because once on your device you've got your password manager that's enabled, you can then go and you put in your one super strong password that unlocks all what they would say keys to the kingdom, your password database. And so that one password is the only one you ever have to remember. And you make it long and strong and very unbreakable. And so then, yeah, you just go and use your password manager. You save all your Facebook accounts, your Googles, your emails, etc., into this thing. Generally, they are really secure. LastPass had a bit of an incident before, but they've come right now. So, it's a good approach. And then always enable MFA, multi-factor authentication. So where the apps go and say, create an account, you go do that, your username, make your password nice and strong, verify your account. First step before you do anything, log in and say enable 2FA in the account. It'll ask you to scan a QR code. You scan the code with your multi-factor authentication app. So as I say, Authenticator or Authy or Proton Pass, one password as well, various others, and then you've got this MFA. Now you've got two factors for login. Yes, it's a little bit less convenient, but it's going to stop the compromises. It's going to stop the attacks. So verification and password manager are the first two. The next one is to go and use your long passwords, as I say. If you are using a password manager, you should be, and to go and secure it, make your passwords long. They don't have to be complex. Things that are complex, you write down. Things that are written down, can be read by other people. Shoulder surfing, reading your email, etc. Things like that. You don't want to. Where you can, avoid shared devices. So, for example, on like an internet cafe, not everybody is fortunate enough to have their own IT device, their own computer, their own phone, their own iPad. But where you can, always make sure that you log out of your sessions. Just closing the browser doesn't necessarily log you out. So if you are logging into your banking and you are on a shared environment, like say for at work or something like that, where you're maybe in a call center or something and it's a shared device, always manually log out. Click that log out button, because just closing the browser is not necessarily ending the session. And so then somebody just comes along, sits at your PC, takes a random chance, opens your browser, says undo close tab, and the session is still live. Now they're in your bank, or now they're on your Facebook, or whatever it is that you logged into. So yeah, so always log out from your account. Takes a few seconds longer, but it'll save you in the long run. Then yeah, as I say, awareness. So if you're actually expecting a call, divulge less, right? There's so many places that are wanting to sell you car insurance, medical aid, and all valid and all good and all businesses and everything. But did you actually request it? Because you never know when it's actually a cybercrime. And if you didn't request it, think twice. What are the rational questions that a car insurance company will ask me? Why would they ask me about the school my kid is at? Random example, but why would they ask that? And if somebody asks that straight away, you're like, no, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't look right. And you hang up the phone. If they speak about your car insurance, because like the car insurance is one of them, it's happening quite often, where they'll be like, we need to know the address, we need to know the license plate number, we need to know the model, the make. All of that kind of information can, if it was a nefarious actor, an evil actor, could be used to clone your vehicle. So why not pretend to be a car insurance? You're going to give me all the information. I'm going to make it super lucrative and say, well, hey, if I can't beat your premium, perhaps I give you some cash or some certain reward. Now I've disarmed you because you're like, oh, well, I either get a good premium or I get money. Cha-ching! And all of a sudden I've pretexted you. I've got your awareness to go away, etc. You're going to give me the information and I can use that for evil acts. So yeah, so it's all that kind of stuff. MFA, passwords, awareness, verify at all times. Much the same as you would down the street. You're not going to run around with a wallet filled with 200 notes and be like, look what I've got. Same awareness. Put in your pocket, know who's around you, be cautious, be aware, use the internet. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. It's a wonderful place of entertainment, work, business, etc. It's awesome. But definitely take the steps to secure your digital identity, secure yourself, use the security tools that are available, learn a little bit about it. There's tremendous YouTube videos that are there. to show some tech information if you want to know, how do computers work or how does the internet work if you don't know, and give them a watch, learn a little bit. And this will just raise your awareness that when somebody calls, potentially this is what's actually happening. Oh, okay. Why would they ask for it? Learn a little bit about cars. Why would they ask for that? Awareness. And on and on and on. All information is good information.
So Ben, I got an important question, and I think we can close on this, after we discuss this. So, like you said, people, the criminals, the cyber criminals, will try to get your information, verify that's correct, and then they'll sit on it. So, I'm pretty sure my information is somewhere out there in some criminal database and has been verified. Is there something I can do about that, or am I just waiting for them to pounce on me, or is there something I can actually do? Like maybe can I go to the police and say, "Hey, I know my data's been breached, um, and my Telegram's been hacked, and I know that. Can I report it so that in the future, if they impersonate me and do some crime, at least I've got some record to say that I had been breached." I don't know. Is there some practical thing we can do? Because I think so many people have their data already, or sensitive information already breached, sitting on some database somewhere.
So yes, by all means, you can go to the police, you can report it. That's there. Where it would come in handy, is if, let's say, on some sort of fraud case, you were impersonated, you could say, yeah, but I disclosed that I was breached over here, that my information was usable. It wasn't me. Here's a police reference. What, and then the state could essentially use that if they ever catch the actual syndicate guys, if they actually catch the cyber criminals, they can then use it and say, well, we've got 100 reports that in the, let's say, I don't know, elephant scam, where, I don't know, elephant trunk would, I don't know, do something, make your heart better, and now they catch that, let's say, poacher. They can then go and say, well, we've got these 100 case files. This guy's 100% guilty. We've got his face, we've got his name, we've got his modus operandi. It's at the police. The guys have disclosed that he tried to impersonate, and the state could then use that, to charge the guy correctly. As far as getting your data back or removed, it's exceptionally difficult. It costs a hell of a lot of money, and the success rate is not always guaranteed. So the reason why that's the case is because if I own something, so for example, your name in a database or a system that's on my system, you first have to find it. Assuming that you do find it, what legal basis do you have to tell me to delete it? Right? So for a company, let's say Netflix or somebody, where I've got some sort of pirated movie, sure, A, they've got the resources, B, they've got the lawyers, C, they've got the tech, D, they've got the drive to go and take this down because, I'm costing them money potentially from streaming this free movie. I don't know, the new Avengers movie or something. So it's a lot of revenue to them. It's worthwhile for them. They can try and do something. If they can find me, it's very difficult still, but if they can find me, they can potentially say, in a court of law, you remove this or we sue you. If I've got nothing tied to me, no address, no ID, no nothing because of various criminal activity that happens, well, you can't sue a ghost and you can't arrest a ghost. So there's nothing you can really do from that perspective. So once your data is compromised, and this is why it's so sensitive, is that yes, it's already done. But with age, your data becomes old. And with old data, potentially your awareness has increased. So now as people are doing this, saying, oh, I've got this ID number. I haven't tried this for 20 years. Let me try and target Deepak John or Deepak. And, then I phone him up and I say, your ID number is this. And straight away, you're like, nope. And you hang up the phone. Sure, I had your ID. Sure, I had your phone number. But your awareness and all of that, you were on top of it. You could shut it down straight away. It's the same thing as kind of saying gun, hijack, car. There's nothing really you can do. You can have your awareness. You can avoid funny places. You can try and, look around you a bit. But if you're stuck in traffic and that guy comes with his firearm, get out the car and hand it over kind of thing. It's done. And you can't stop it. It's there. Maybe you can recover your vehicle. Maybe you can recover the gun. Maybe you can recover the stuff. But, essentially what's done is done. they've got their stuff. And it's a similar principle with the cybercrime and with the data, with all these breaches. That information is out there. If you see that your Facebook account, for example, Telegram, has been, disclosed, change the password. There's something that's called what have I been pwned? So you can actually put your email into this system. You can go Google that, and it'll actually tell you if your email address has been found in a database breach. If it has, log into the account, change your password. The email, you can sometimes change the email address as well nowadays. So do that. Change the email address, change the password. Even though your data exists in a database dump, it's there forever. It's not going away. But at least you know it's no longer valid. So that's how you can do it. As far as getting it taken down, very, very, very unlikely that that's going to happen, especially from a civilian perspective.
Ben, I think we could actually talk about this topic. It's we can extend this for another hour because it seems like there's so much going on and it's evolving so quickly, and there's so many crimes that the criminals are coming up with. They're just so creative on how they are tricking you, getting you off guard. But I think you have shared a really huge amount of valuable information to our audience. We really appreciate your time and wisdom, and we look forward to chatting with you again so you can keep us cybercrime free. So until next time, Ben, ciao for now.
Keep well. Ciao.